Hello, I'm Charles Moffat, and this is Bard by Keith Taylor, which is I'm gonna describe it as it's like a sword and sorcery type book, but it's also a action comedy. So there's some good comedic bits in this, I find. I really enjoyed reading this book. I'm so glad that I bought like four of them. So like there's Bard 2, and the other ones that as far as the series goes. So I bought four of them, and I'm so happy that the first book was so enjoyable. It does feel a bit like you're reading a anthology a bit. It's a case where you're reading it and you get like part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 and part 5 and so forth. And the individual parts kind of feel more like short stories or novellas. So even though it does have a overarching plot, like a novel, it did feel, it has a beginning and an end as far as that goes. That's the longer story, but there's all this stuff that happens in the middle that is really feels more like short stories or novellas or novelettes. But very enjoyable to read. So yeah, if you want something that has a nice older feel to it, as well, because this book was apparently written in the 70s and was popular during the 70s and 80s. Yeah, quite a good book, worth reading. Now, on the bardic level, there's these occasional bits here, like here, where it actually shows like some poetry stuff that the main character has supposedly written. So he does occasionally sing and things like that, but a lot of it is just the poetry part of it. And as far as bards go, his abilities within the story are very similar to what you would find in Dungeons and Dragons, the bard class. So, because he's walking around with like this magical harp, and then he's got his sword as well, and he encounters various characters like this guy right here and everything that goes on with that. Yeah, and it's set in, I guess you could say, the Middle Ages after the Romans have left England. I thought perhaps that it was like before the Romans were there, or whatever, or maybe that didn't really matter what time it was. But no, it's actually specifically during the time period when the Anglo-Saxons and the Jutes were coming into England and conquering territory, and then the Irish were being basically pushed out of certain areas. And the main character is a Irish bard with magic, who dabbles in magic, shall we say. Just like you would expect in the Dungeons & Dragons type bards. Except, this came out before then. And I would have to think that this played a major influence in how Dungeons & Dragons bards actually work in terms of what their abilities are, and everything that they can actually do. This feels like this is the prototype of what came later in terms of how Dungeons & Dragons and players interpret a bard to be. It's basically based on this. Now, maybe this is based on older stories as well, but this to me feels like this is the prototype of what came later. So if you're into Dungeons and Dragons and you like characters that are bards, this is definitely a book that you should probably read. And a very enjoyable book. So even if you're not into that, and you just like, say, comedic fantasy, this is a good book to read. Although I should say that this is also, to some extent, historical fantasy. There's some action stuff, obviously, but it definitely has comedic fantasy and historical elements going on at the same time. Very enjoyable. I would definitely read it again someday. So it is a case of I'm looking forward to books 2, 3, and 4 from the series, and I will possibly read this one over again because it was just really good. So not right now, because I have a giant giant stack of books on my to be read pile, but this one is out of the way for now, and I look forward to reading some of the other ones in the series. Okay, I'm Charles Moffat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and go check out my books at amazon.com/author/Moffat. Okay, bye-bye.